42. Here are the 5 worlds characterized, that make up all spiritual reality, coming from Ein Sof Baruch Hu, from the infinite, and extending to Olam Haze, to this world. But they are composed of each other, and in each of these worlds is the sum of the 5 worlds, as it has already been saying. The 5 Sphirot of Kahab Tum, Keter, Hakma, Bina, Tefereth, and Malhut, which the 5 lights of the Naranhai, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Hea, Yaida, corresponding to the 5 worlds, as stated above. And in addition to the 5 Sphirot, Kahab Tum, which are concluded in every world without exception, in any world, there are also the 4 spiritual stages of Domem, inanimate, also exist, Samaya, vegetable, Hai, animal, Madaber, speaking, of which Nishmat Ha'adam, the soul of human soul, is the stage of Madaber available there, and as Hai are characterized by the Malachim, angels, of the respective world, and as Samaya are characterized by the so-called Lavashim, vestments, and as Domem are characterized by the so-called Haikalat, palaces, chambers. And these stages are considered to clothe one another. For the stage of Madaber, that is, the Neshamate, souls, of the sons of men, are put upon the 5 Sphirot Kahab Tum, which constitute the divinity of the respective world, and the concept of the 10 Sphirot, that constitute Godhood, will be explained below, in the introduction to the book of Zohar, and the objects, characterized as Hai, i.e., Malachim, are put on Neshamat, and Samaya, i.e., Lavashim, are put on Malachim, and objects, characterized as Domem, i.e., Haikalat, vest them all, and this vesting means that these objects use each other and evolve out of each other, as we explained when talking about the material inanimate, the plant, the animal and spoken, which are in this world, above, in Paras. 35, 36, 37, 38, and, as we said there, the 3 stages of the inanimate, the plant, and the animal, did not appear for themselves, but only in order that the Bechina Dalet, the 4th stage, to evolve and arise by means of them, and she is the genus, the human race. And therefore they are meant for the sole purpose of serving and help him. This is also the case in all spiritual worlds. The 3 stages of Domem, Samaya, and Hai, which are there, appeared only to serve and help the stage of Madaber, which is there, that is, the Nishmat Ha'adam, human soul. Human soul. Therefore, it is believed that all of them are put on Nishmat Ha'adam, which means that they exist for her benefit. 43. And so when a person is born, he immediately acquires Binat Nefesh Dikdasha, the first level of the holy soul, and not the Nefesh itself, but the Ahareim Shel Nefesh stage, the back of the soul, literally, the buttocks of the soul, which means it's the last stage, called in view of its smallness by the name of Nakuda, point. And it is clothed in the heart. The human heart, that is, the desire to receive, which is contained within it and reveals itself mainly in the heart of man. And know that the law is this: everything, manifest in all things as a whole, is also manifested in every world, and even in every smallest part of it that is possible to be singled out in the world in question. Thus, just as the 5 worlds are present in all of creation as a whole, and they represent the 5 spirit Kahab Tum, Kathar, Hakma, Bina, Tifereth, and Malhut, as already mentioned, so there are 5 spirit Kahab Tum in every world without exception. And so also 5 spirit are present in every small part of the respective world. And so we said that this world is divided into levels of domem, inanimate, samaya, vegetable, high, animal, madaber, speaking, and they correspond to the 4 spirit hub tum, hakma and bina, tifereth and malhut. 4 domem corresponds to malhut, and samaya corresponds to tifereth, and high corresponds to bina, and madaber corresponds to hakma, and the source of them all corresponds to kathar. But, as has been said, even one representative of each and every of the genus can find in domem. Somii, high, and madaber is also inherent in the 4 stages of domem, samaya, high, and madaber. Thus, and an individual member of the madaber family, i.e., even a single person is also inherent in domem, samaya, high, and madaber, which are the 4 parts of his inherent desire to receive, which the Nakuda, which comes from the Nefesh Dikdush, Nefesh of holiness. 44. And until the age of 13 it is impossible to imagine any revelation of Nakudu Shib Libo, the point in his heart. But after he reaches 13 years of age, when he begins to do Torah and the commandments, and even without any kavana, proper motivation, that is, without love and awe, befitting the service of the king, and even lo lishma, not for the sake of the Torah itself, begins this Nakuda Shib Libo grows and its impact manifest. For the commandments do not require kavana, and even actions performed without kavana are able to purify his desire to receive. But only within the limits of his first stage, which is called domem, inanimate. And as he does so, he purifies the domem part of his desire to receive. He accordingly builds up, in himself, more and more the 613 organs of the point in the heart, which is domem denefesh dikdasha, the inanimate level of the first stage of the holy soul. And when he brings to perfection the practical, the fulfillment of all 613 commandments, and thereby all 613 organs of the point of view are finally formed. 613 organs of the point in the heart, which is the domem denefesh dikdasha, and 248 of its spiritual organs are built through the fulfillment of 248 commandments prescribing active actions, and 365 of its spiritual joints are built through the fulfillment of 365 prohibitive commandments. While Nakuda Sheba Lev, point in the heart, becomes the finally formed parts of literally, the face, as opposed to the Ahoraim, buttocks, which were formed at the beginning, Denefesh Dikdasha, the first stage of the holy soul, called Nefesh, and then, Parkuf, Nefesh rises up and enfolds the Sphira of Malhut, which is in the spiritual world of Asiya. And all spiritual elements of domem, samaya, vegetable, high, animal, of the world, Asiya, appearing corresponding to this Saphira Malhut to Asiya, serve and assist the Parkuf of the Nefesh to Adam, the first stage of the soul of man, that has arisen there, that is, insofar as Nefesh consumes them, for consumed by her, they become her spiritual food, giving her the strength to grow and mature, until she is able to attract the light of Sphira Malhut to Asiya in all its desired. Measure and shine into the guf. Body, i.e., into the receptacle of desire to receive. Of a person. And this light shining in full force helps that person to exert more effort, practicing the Torah and the commandments, and to reach higher levels. And as we said, as soon as the human body was born, the Nakuda, point, of light was born and clothed in it. Nefesh, so also here, when his Partzuf was born to him. Nefesh Dikdasha, the first level of the Holy Soul, was born, the point of the step was born with him, above him, that is, the last stage of the light of Ruach to Asiya, clothed inside. Parkuf Nefesh, and the same thing happens on all stages. Within each stage that is born immediately appears the last stage of the stage, above it, for this is the whole connection between the highest and the lowest down to the uppermost step. And using this point as of the potion sent by the Supreme, she acquires the ability to ascend to a higher level, and this is not the place to go on about it. 45. And this light of Nefesh is called by the name of Or Hadomem Dikdasha Dolam Asiya, light of the inanimate level of the holiness of the world Asiya. And this is because he is conceived to correspond to the purity of the part of the domem, inanimate, desire to receive guf, the body, i.e. desire to receive, of man, as already mentioned. In addition, the impact of the glow, nefesh, in the spiritual is similar to the stage of the inanimate world in the material, which was explained above, in Para. 35. Inasmuch as there is no separate movement inherent in its parts, but only a general movement takes place, which embraces all the parts equally, such as though the light of the Parkuf Nefesh Da'asha, in spite of the fact that there are in it 613 organs, which are 613 kinds of the qualitatively different reception of the chief, grace, nevertheless, it does not show these distinctions, but only the general light, the effect of which embraces all these organs equally. And no particulars are distinguishable in it. 46. And know that even though these spirit are divinity and are in no way different or separated from the Rosh, head, i.e., the highest part, Hakathir, i.e., the highest Sphira, of the world Adam Kadmon, i.e., the highest world, all the way to Saf, the limit of receiving the light, i.e., the lowest part, of the Sphirat Hamalhut, i.e., the lowest Sphira, of the world Asiya, i.e., the lower world. Nevertheless there is a great division concerning those who receive. For the Sphirat are characterized as light and vessels, and the light enclosed in the Sphirat is the absolute bow. The light contained in the Sphirat is the absolute godness, as has been said, but, otherwise, the vessels the case is different with, the vessels called Kahab Tum, Kathar, Hakma, Bina, Tefereth, and Malhut, in each of the three lower worlds called Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. They are not characterized as God existence, but as coverings that conceal the light. Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the infinite, that is within them. Within them, and establishing a certain power and quantity of his luminosity in relation to recipients, so that each of them receives only that which corresponds to the measure of his inherent purity. And characterizing this, although the light itself is one, we nevertheless, we call these lights that are in the Sphirith by the name Neranhe, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Heya, Yaida. For the light is subdivided according to the properties of the vessels. Since Malhut is the covering of the greatest thickness, i.e., impurity, hiding the light of Ein Sof, and Malhut transmits from him to those who receive only a small amount of light, pertaining solely to the purification stage, Domem, the inanimate, Guf, the body, i.e., the receptacle of the desire to receive, of man, and therefore he is called Nefesh. And the vessel of Tefereth is purer than the vessel of Malhut, and the light which, Tefereth, transmits from Ein Sof Baruch Hu, corresponds to the purity of the part of the Tzamaya, vegetable, Guf of man, as, this vessel, is affected by a light greater than the light of Nefesh, and it is called the light of Ruach, and Bina's vessel is purer than Tefereth, and the light which, the vessel of Bina, transmits from Ein Sof Baruch Hu, corresponds to the purity of the high, animal, Guf part of man, and it is called the light of Neshama. Chokmah's vessel is purer than all of them, and the light which, the vessel Chokmah, transmits from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, is special, corresponding to the purity of the part of the Madaber, speaking, Guf of man, and he is called the light of Heya, and the impact of him has no boundaries, as will be explained to us. 47. And as mentioned above, in parts of Nefesh, acquired by a person through the study of the Torah and commandments without the Kavanah, proper motivation, the point of light Ruach is already clothed. Having acquired the power to study the Torah and the commandments with the desired motivation, a person takes on purifying the Tzamaya, vegetable, part of one's desire to receive, and as this purification progresses he builds the Ruach point, bringing it to the level of Partsev, as through the fulfillment with the Kavanah of the 248 commandments that prescribe active actions, the point spreads out, forming 248 of its spiritual organs. And through the fulfillment of the 365 prohibitive commandments, the dot extends, forming 365 its articulations. And when it is completed, the formation of all her 613 organs together, it rises and wraps Sphirot HaTeferet, which is in the spiritual world. Asiya, transmitting, to man, from Ein Sof Baruch Hu, from the infinite, a more meaningful light. Called the light of Ruach, for it is designed so, to correspond to the purity of the Tzamaya part of the body of man. And all parts of the Domem, inanimate, Tzamaya and high, animal, of the world of Asiya, belonging to the level of Tefereth, help the Parkaf Ruach of man receive light from Sphirot HaTeferet in its entirety. The fullness, just as it was explained above, in Para. 44. For the light of Nefesh, see, and therefore it is called, this Parkaf, Tzamaya Dikdasha, the vegetable level of holiness, and the nature of its luminescence corresponds to the material vegetable world, of which explained above, in N. 36, for it has already inherent distinctions of motion, recognizable in each and every excluded of its elements in itself. Thus the light of the spiritual level of the Samaya already has, great enough, power to illuminate in a special way each and every one of the 613 organs of the parts of Ruach, and each of them manifests its power of influence, peculiar to that particular organ. Also along with the appearance of the parts of Ruach, there is a point, the point of the step above it, that is, the point Neshem's light. And it is clothed within him. 48. And thanks to Hayesek Besadat HaTorah, the Torah, and the profound meaning of the commandments. The deeper meaning of the commandments, a person, purifies part of the high, animal, inherent desire to receive, and as this purification progresses he begins to build a point of light, of neshama, clothed in him, transforming it into 248 organs and 365 joints, and when her construction is fully completed and she becomes Parkaf, then she rises up and is put upon the Sphirat Habina of the spiritual world. Asiya, so that this vessel is immeasurably purer than the first vessels of Tefereth and Malhut, and therefore it transmits, to man, the great light from Ein Sof Baruch Hu, from the infinite, called the light of Neshama. And all parts of the domem, inanimate, samaya, vegetable, and high of the world Asiya, belonging to the level of Bina, find themselves in the service and help the Parkaf. Neshama of this man to fully receive his lights from the Sphirat HaBina, just as it explained, in N. 44, for the lights of Nefesh, c. And this one, Parkaf, is also characterized as High Dikdasha, the animal level of holiness, for he is designed so, to correspond to the purity of the high part of the body human beings. And the nature of its luminescence corresponds to what has been explained for the material animal world, above, in N. 37, for this Parkaf gives a private sensation to every one without of the 613 organs of the Partsef, enlivening it and giving a sense of freedom to of each of them without any dependence upon Partsef as a whole, to the extent that it is believed that his 613 organs are 613 special Partsefs, and each corresponds to a kind of inherent luminosity, and each of them manifests itself in its own way. And this light is higher than the light of the Ruach of the spiritual world, as much as the animal world is different compared to the inanimate and vegetal in the material world. Also at the appearance of the parts of Neshama, there appears a point of light of the Heya Dikdash, holiness, which is the light of Sphira Hakma, and attaches itself within it. 49. And already after, man, has been graced with this great light, called the light of Neshama, so that each of the 613 organs in this Parkaf shines individual, full and bright light, as if it were a separate independent Partsef, then it is revealed, to man, how to practice each and every commandment with true kavana, motivation, peculiar to it, since each organ of the Parkaf Neshama sheds, to a person, light on the special for that organ ways, of doing, each commandment, and by the great power of these lights he begins to purify part of the Madaber, speaking, of his desire to receive, and transforms it into the opposite, the altruistic desire, and as this purification begins to build point of the light of Haya, clothed in it, forming 248 spiritual organs and 365 spiritual articulations. And when the formation of the complete Parkaf is completed, then it is lifted up and put on the Sphira. Hakma of the spiritual world of Asya, and this vessel is infinitely pure, and so it transmits to man, from Ein Sof Baruch Hu, of the infinite, the greatest and most wondrous light, which is called light of Haya or Neshama Luneshama, the soul of the soul. And all the parts of Domem, the inanimate, Samaya, vegetable, and Hai, animal, of the world of Asya, belonging to the Sphira Hakma, help him receive the light of Sphira Hakma in its entirety in the same way just as it was explained in N. 44, for the light of Nefesh, c. And this Parkaf is also called Madabar Dikdasha, the level of the speaking holiness, for he is conceived to correspond to the purity of the part of the Madabar of the human body. And this light, which is in the divine, also corresponds to a part of the Madabar system of the Domem, Samaya, Hai, Madabar of the material world. What is meant is that Madabar acquires the sense of another individual. Thus the magnitude of this light in compared to the spiritual parts of Domem, Samaya, Hai, is the same as the greatness of the genus Madabar in the material world compared to the greatness, material Domem, Samaya, Hai. And the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, clothed in this Parkaf, is characterized as the light of Yaida.